Okay, good afternoon. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. If I could have your attention, please. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for joining us here today for this FCC Club Lunch titled The Art of Reinvention, Can Hong Kong Become a Global Arts Hub? My name is Williamson. I'm the president of the Foreign Correspondents Club, Hong Kong. Next week, of course, marks Art Basel and what has become known more broadly as Art Week. Indeed, in the 12 years since the famed Swiss Art Fair chose Hong Kong as the location for its Asia event, it's fair to say that the city's arts and culture ecosystem has dramatically evolved. In just the last 7 years, the city has unveiled 3 landmark institutions of art and culture in M+, Palace Museum, and Kwun. In addition, the world's biggest auction houses, Sotheby's, Christie's, and Phillips, have all opened new flagship locations in Hong Kong over the last couple of years, cementing the city as their Asia headquarters. Conversely, there is also the new looming specter of censorship and the shifting of so-called red lines that some say threaten to curtail the city's vibrant culture. During this session, we are going to cover the challenges and the opportunities that lie ahead as the city sits at this critical crossroads in its bid to become a global arts hub as well as a financial center. To discuss this, I couldn't be joined by 2 more eminent speakers with expertise on the topic. I'm delighted to be joined by the Honourable Bernard Chan and Dr. P. Lee. Dr. P. Lee is the head of art at Kwun Contemporary. He is a former SIG senior curator and head of curatorial affairs at M+. He also previously served as the Deputy Executive Director of the Art Administration Department of Beijing's Central Academy of Fine Arts. And of course, the person sat next to me needs no introduction. Bernard Chan is a business leader, a former politician, a patron of the arts, and indeed an artist himself. He is the chairman and president of Asia Financial Holdings. He's also the chairman of both M+ Museum and Kwun, the vice chairman of the West Kowloon Cultural District Authority, and the former chairman of the Hong Kong Palace Museum. He also served as the convener of the non-official members of the Executive Council from 2017 to 2022. Please join me in welcoming our 2 speakers today. Thank you. Bernard, before we discuss the what and the how, I would like to get in a little bit into the why. So in November last year, the government published a blueprint for arts and culture and creative industries development, which had a total of 71 measures as part of the blueprint. What is behind this big push to develop arts and culture in Hong Kong? Mm-hmm. Is it a soft power play, or is it purely an effort to bolster tourism and the economy? Is it a bit of both?
Why don't I start with the history? By the way, I just noticed we have many consul generals from Canadian, German, Singapore. I need to be careful not offending any of them because I will start comparing Hong Kong with many other jurisdictions. Of course, we have my colleagues from West Kowloon and Kwun are here too. But let's go back to the history because I always start with the history. I wonder how many of you know how we get to where we are today, what kind of mess we got ourselves into today, right? And how do we all start it? You know, I mean, if you were to ask me, even though, yes, I have been involved with West Kowloon on and off for 20-some years, but I never believed that we are serious about it. If you even to ask me 10 years ago, well, I believe Hong Kong is going to be an art and culture hub for Asia, if not for the world, I'd say, you're kidding me, right? Because Hong Kong is always about money and more money and making more money. And there's no, at that time, right, there's not much money in arts and culture. Yes, I studied with a studio art degree. I graduated with a studio art degree. Would I ever imagine I were ever going to use my degree for anything? Of course not. Right? This is not how the city valued money. Anyway, so I want to make this as a very important point just to remind everyone before you walk out FCC, this is the one takeaway you have to remember. First, who started it? Right? How did we get to where we are today? 27 years ago, I think it's 27 or 28 now coming up, at the second policy address of Hong Kong, back then Mr. Chung, so October 98, Because I forgot completely about all these things. I was elected legislator at the time, but did I pay attention? No, because there's only one paragraph. There's only one paragraph in his policy address where he likely mentioned that in this new reclaim area, didn't even say West Kowloon, they didn't have a name yet. It's the new reclaim area, which have some new culture venue. And that's all. That is just one paragraph. I am 100% sure that was not Mr. Tong's idea. Must be someone who told him. And I found out who that person was, by the way. And so he put it in there. Thank God he did. Right? Now, again, let me go back, because then the question is, it's got to go back even further than that. It's not even 1998. It goes back as far back as 1990. What happened in 1990? Shortly after, apparently, after Tiananmen Square in '89, apparently, I guess I was still a student back then in the US, so I was completely on the ground, understanding the issue. But you can only imagine there was confidence crisis, kind of like today, right? Confidence crisis about the future, 1997, everything. And apparently, back then, the colonial government decided to embark this whole thing about the new airport, right? The so-called, it's called the airport core program. In Chinese, we call it the 玫瑰園計劃, the 玫瑰園計劃, it's a rose whatever, yeah. And you know what that project is about? Is moving the airport from Kai Tak all the way to where the airport is today. Now, okay, well, the issue is not the airport, it's how much it's going to cost us. Apparently, in the $1990 term, 140 billion Hong Kong dollars. 140 billion Hong Kong dollars. Because it's not just about the airport, it's the infrastructure and everything else that connect the new airport back to the city, okay? Now, bear with me, I know you're wondering where I'm coming to. It's important. Because you understand the history, then you appreciate where we are today. So the question is, at the time, the Chinese were very upset because apparently the British didn't consult the Chinese. Is that maybe you know better than me the history. Anyway, 140 billion, so the immediate response from the Chinese is like, wait, who's going to pay for it? How are we going to pay for it, right? Now, of course, there's only one way of paying for anything in Hong Kong. How do you think we can afford low tax, great infrastructure, good hospital system, school, and so on? How do we pay for this? How? Jockey Cup, no, that's not exactly. I wish Jockey Cup pay for everything. Close, we're almost there. Sell land. That's how we pay for anything, well, at least a major part of everything. We sell land. So of course, it's not just building the airport. Along the infrastructure, we create all these massive land, and then we sell them off, right? So there comes West Kowloon. West Kowloon is all part of that reclamation for what? The tunnel, the Western Tunnel. So anyway, my point was, apparently, the original intention for that entire area is to have land you sell for the highest bidder to recoup the money and so on and so on. So that piece of land was never intended for arts and culture. That's why I say you got to understand the history. It was never meant for that purpose. But however, thanks to a civil servant at the time, I don't know whether you want me to name him, but perhaps I can name him because he now claimed his credit. It was his idea that he gave to Mr. Tong, and that is a former civil servant by the name of Gordon Seal. Because Gordon was the advisor to the CPU or whatever back then. So he's a music lover. So he said to me, it was what a waste that we auction off the last piece of harborfront land for the highest bidder. Because guess what? What would the highest bidder do? Now, don't blame all the developers. They pay a lot of money for it, right? So when they pay the money for it, what do you expect? They would try to squeeze every dollar out of it. So all you see is more high-rise, more office, more condo, more hotels for people who can afford to spend that kind of money. So it's not really for the public. So anyway, he told me it was his idea to convince Mr. Tong that at least in that last piece of land, we should preserve something for arts and culture. Okay, great. So it was in that policy address. So then what happened? That was 98. The West Kowloon Cultural District Authority was not established until 2008. So that was 10 years. So what happened during that 10 years? How many of you were in Hong Kong during that 10 years? See your hands? So some of you should remember that. So anyway, what did we do? We did something where Hong Kong we should be very proud of. We do that a lot. So that during that 10 years, you know what we do best?
Public consultation.
He even said it in a very nice way.
She's not wrong.
She's been very nice. Enid's been like, yes, but it's not consultation. We argue for 10 years, right? How it's going to pay for, who's going to pay for it. Hong Kong government, even now today, right? It's not like Singapore government. Victor, sorry, I'm going to put you on the spot now because people always compare us to Hong Kong and Singapore. Well, now we have total different DNA. Singapore is very top-down and government-led. Here, it's completely opposite. They don't want to take any risk. So they basically delegate out, right? So the original plan was still to auction the piece of land out to the highest bidder. The only difference is there's a condition in the auction that require you to build some arts and culture facility. That's all. Do you remember still the canopy design, some of you? Well, that was the first Norman Foster concept design, when you have a big canopy to cover the 40 hectares of land. It's fantastic design, but...
It's now taken to Manchester United, if anyone's seen the renders of the Manchester United new stadium by Norman Foster.
Is it?
Yeah,
Oh.
check it out.
Okay. So anyway, when that concept first came, there was a big pushback, not from the community, but from the other developers, because they all assumed that, who else can afford to bid for this piece of land with this one project, because it's a huge amount of money. So there was a lot of pushback, and then of course everyone in town never believed, especially the arts and cultures community, I think, never believed that government has any actual intention to do arts and culture. It's just another property development disguised with arts and culture, just like Cyberport.
Right.
Some of you might remember Cyberport. It's like, oh yeah, it's IT, but actually it's property. You remember that? That was a skepticism back then, right? So anyway, back and forth for 10 years. So finally, 2008, the government, I don't know what happened, but they decided, okay, we do it. Contrary to our culture, we do it. The government, but of course it's not the government. Then they created this semi-quasi-government.
Public-private partnership.
Well, it's not private, it's 100% government. But it's a separate entity from the government. You cannot expect bureaucrats running these things, but it is still a 100% funded project from the government. Now, so reason why you have to understand this thing is, I don't think it was how they envisaged in the beginning. But somehow, we managed to see it through 27 years. Today, it is happening at the most important time for Hong Kong, right? How are we going to distinguish us from the rest of the cities? And finally, for the first time, we have something that I think we are now at least comparable to London, New York. If we want to put ourselves in the same level of London, New York, I'll come down to that. However, there's a missing part, and that is still, which I talked to some of you before we come up to this room. I said, listen, this is all great. The question is the funding. There's still an issue. Now, I know there's a camera in front of me, and I don't know what I'm going to be saying. We're going to get me into a lot of trouble.
Hello to YouTube.
And, but I'm telling you, some of you may not know, we already have, this is not, it's not a secret, but I don't think we too often talk about it. But the number so far, on West Kowloon, not Tai Kwun. Tai Kwun is another big number. On West Kowloon alone, each one of you, taxpayers, right, because it's government money, we already invested $5 billion US into West Kowloon to date. $5 billion US. And in terms of arts and culture facilities, we are only close to 50% built. Right? I reckon we still another 15 to 20 years to finish the entire West Kowloon Cultural District art facilities. And you can imagine the number, the amount of money required. If we're going to do the music center, Paul, I was told that it will be at least probably $1 billion US, roughly. US. More than that. Oh, thank you. More than $1 billion US if we ever want to, because we still need to build the music center, the Broadway theater, the musical theater, whatever, to finish everything on West Kowloon, that's still another easily 40%. Just on one is 1 billion US. So we spend 5 billion US, we are far from even, but of course, with that 5 billion, we already put Hong Kong on the map. So we can talk a lot more about that later on. But I'm just saying, if we came a long way, and so when I go and promote Hong Kong overseas, well, I was in Bangkok, and they were all amazed. They said, wow, it's only in Hong Kong you can do it. Because they said, in my country, I'm talking about Thai, no government, no politician will agree to spend that kind of money that they will not benefit themselves, right? Because everyone cares about is the next election, right? So if you tell me that this is like a 15, 20, 25, 30 years investment, what's it for them? But the fact that we somehow managed, even though I think at the very beginning, again, I wasn't sure exactly what was Mr. Tong's idea, but then, wow. But the question, though, is, does everybody in Hong Kong agree to that? Because it's all taxpayers' money at the end of the day. So this is a journey that we started the journey. We're now halfway through that journey, and great things ahead of us, but we still need to get the buy-in from everyone in the community.
Bernard, it's a fascinating story, and you tell it so well. You tell it so well, and I think we all appreciate your candor and your directness with our audience today. I do want to bring in Dr. P. Lee. I think one of the things that you said that jumped out at me is the timing now, thank God, couldn't be better. And what I take as an answer to my question is it's both helpful in terms of Hong Kong soft power and also in terms of driving tourism as well. Let's look back, not quite as far back as 1990, but in the last 7 years since the first of these institutions, Kwun, opened, and then Plus and Palace Museum. Dr. P. Lee, just how much, looking back before we start to look forward, which I'd like to do, how much of an impact have these new cultural institutions already had on developing the city's arts ecosystem?
Sorry, can I jump in first? Because he was actually there even before me.
Yeah.
So you came to Hong Kong 2012?
2012.
To start, before West K, before M Plus was ready to open. So you were 10 years, almost, not 10 years.
11 years.
11 years before M Plus opened. He came to help us to open M Plus.
You've seen a lot, you've lived in Hong Kong for 6+ years before the opening of the institutions, and since, what difference have they made already?
I think Hong Kong have massively changed, not with 7 years ago. I think exactly about 12 years ago when Art Basel Hong Kong launched here, and then immediately see the first layer Art Basel landed here, and then this all blue chips gallery have their branch here, and then we see, and then Kwun, Chart, and Plus open in the parallel, and not to mention those small alternative space in Shen, Shui Bu, all artists self-organized space there. So that's really booming this kind of the art scene. But the more important than that is also draw the whole international attention here. I think Hong Kong have some I think in the 2006, Art Basel did a huge trip from Beijing, Shanghai, Hong Kong, as well as other places. I was first, and they want to settle a place to can launch the Art Basel in Asia, and finally they choose in Hong Kong. Free tax and free currency. That's two major reasons they started here. So once the market draws here, they also drew huge attention to here and bring a lot of opportunity for young Hong Kong artists here. And this also became kind of the exchange place, not only for Hong Kong art world, but also kind of the center for those art have been showing, present, and even creating here from Japan, Korea, mainland China. So that has been massive change. If you can see in the last 10 years, how many young Hong Kong artists be recognized internationally, that's a massive number. And not mentioned by M Plus running the Hong Kong Pavilion in the Venice Biennial. So that's a huge boost for the region here.
You mentioned funding, Bernard, so let's follow up on that a little bit. So the West Kowloon Cultural District Authority's initial, I think I'm right in thinking, 21.6 billion Hong Kong dollar endowment was expected to run out later this year, last year, before measures were taken to shore up its finances, including government permission to sell pockets of its land for residential developments. Public funding for the arts is a hot topic in most countries around the world, right? Some of the biggest museums around the world are either privately funded, state-funded, or a combination of both, as is the case with M+ and Palace Museum. Longer term, how will the public-private partnership model work to secure the long-term finances for West Kowloon? Or put simply, what will the kind of public-private partnership model with Hong Kong characteristics look like to kind of sustain these institutions over the next few decades?
Well, it wasn't until the last couple of years, now that I'm in the position that I have to deal with the mess that I created myself, because I was a member of the Executive Council for many years, for 14 and a half years, under 4 different administrations. So way back in, I don't know, 2005 or 6, so I was in the room together with my colleagues, and we make all the decisions for West K. It's all on the drawing board. And now, not knowing 10 plus years later, now I was like, oh gosh, what did I create it myself a mess for? So this is an important message. Sorry, I'm, again, diverting your question, but I'll come back to it. So one of the things, I was one of the few people in the Executive Council at the time was pushing, because Norman Foster came back with a few designs. And I loved one particular design, and not agreed by everyone else, and most people didn't agree, but I said, I got to have that design, because that is what Hong Kong needed. And that design is the city park design for West Kowloon. And so many asked me, so why? I mean, we have green everywhere in Hong Kong, 40% green, but why you want more green? Then I came to realize that I actually used the wrong terminology. I didn't mean green. I want a lawn. I want a lawn in the middle of the city, just like Central Park, just like Hyde Park. We need a lawn so the community can come together. So anyway, I pushed for that design. Today, I suffer from that design. You know why? So out of the 40 hectares of land, now, just to recap everyone, just to make sure that you don't get my point across the first time, what was that 40 hectares of land originally designated for?
Commercial development.
Make money. Okay, 40 hectares. So now, because thanks to the Norman Foster City Park design, out of the 40 hectares, 23 hectares are designated for public open space. Lee, how good is your math?
Terrible.
Okay, I'm going to still put to you.
17 hectares left.
What is 23 over 40?
Yeah.
What is
40 minus 23, 17.
Just half.
Yeah, half. Okay.
So more than
Not that
half
bad.
of the land that were originally designated for making money, now we can't make money. Right? No money made on the 23 hectares. Worse. Remaining 17 hectares, we're allowed to build 850,000 square meters, GFA. 850,000 square meters. Again, kind of thanks to Cyberport saga, where people have little faith of Hong Kong government, that you're not really serious, this is another property. So the government make a huge commitment. Out of the 850,000 square meter, 40% of that is designated for arts and culture only. So just now when I said we're only half built, I'm talking about 40% of that 850,000 square meters. Okay? All right. Okay. Now, in the last couple of years, since I'm now the chairman and everything, then I start to understand the museum business. Before, I don't know how it works. It came to my realization that nobody ever make money in arts and culture, right? It's the best. In fact, I was told Tate have the best recovery rate, and they still talk about 50%. So you still lose 50%, right? The Mets is only 30-some%. And so on and so on. At M+ today, it's about 40-some% recovery rate. Palace Museum, Hong Kong Palace Museum is also 40-something. But the entire West Kowloon district is 37, 38 recovery rate. In other words, you still lose another 60%, money. Right? So nobody ever make money. So back to your earlier point. So who pay for it? So apparently I was told in the US, because of the tax system, so it's the endowment, the big foundation, they pay. The European model, I was told, is largely state funding. So back to your question. So what is Hong Kong model? Well, there's only one model for everything in Hong Kong. That is
Land sale.
Property. There is always Hong Kong model for everything. MTR never make money, right? But yet you have world-class subway system in Hong Kong. Why? Because the property subsidized it. It wasn't because of the property model. You kidding me? They have no incentive to even open some of the new line.
Do we know yet how many hectares are going to be?
Yeah, we do.
40 are going to be allocated?
Because it's always on the plan from day one. It's always on there because otherwise it will never balance the book. So mentioned, I said 40 to be exact is, it's roughly 41% is for arts and culture, and then 42% of that 850,000 is for commercial and commercial, residential, and hotel development. It's always in the development plan from day one, because without that, is no way you can fund this thing. Now, of course, without this, then it's the government funding. But the government's kind of carve out this, the land and the thing into West Kowloon, and you guys take care of that. That was the original model. Right. It is still the model. So it was that 42%, hopefully, is enough to pay off everything. Now, unfortunately, there was a mismatch of timing. You can definitely tell that arts and culture's product is out already, but yet we haven't had the commercial. So there's a timing mismatch. We don't have the income yet to pay for the arts and culture. And to make it worse, again, of the 42% that designated for the commercial, residential, and hotel, you all know today, commercial is dead. And that's about 20%. So we only have roughly only 20% of that 850,000 square meter designated for residential, likely to generate the income to help us to pay for everything for now. So that is the timing issue. But then, of course, the other bigger issue is the whole commercial development. But this is not just Hong Kong, it's happening everywhere, right? So with the oversupply of a commercial. So, but the original plan had it all thought out, just like the MTR model, is to have the property developments, the income from the property, whether it's rental or, well, it was originally it was for sale, and then at one point we turned it back to rental only, because we thought, the income will be enough to generate, to support the arts and culture. So what happened lately is we revert back to the sale and lease, depending on the market. So it'll allow us to generate the funding to support the arts and culture.
So noted that you never make money on arts and culture. But with that in mind, Pili, I want to ask you about the arts and culture.
We still make money, just that we're not enough to break even.
Not enough to break even.
So you still need to make money for us.
Okay.
You have to.
So you talked, Pili, very encouragingly about local Hong Kong art scene and artists and emerging artists coming into Hong Kong. I want to ask you about art from the mainland in particular. In the 20th century, Hong Kong emerged as a global financial center due to its unique status as a commercial bridge, right, between China and the rest of the world. In the context of geopolitics in 2025, to what extent do you think Hong Kong's status as an art hub, which you want to develop into, will depend on its ability to be a cultural bridge, not a financial bridge, but a cultural bridge between Chinese art and the rest of the world, rather than Chinese money and the rest of the world? And to what extent will that require leaning into enshrined freedoms that are unique to Hong Kong, that of course led all those decades ago to its status as a financial hub? How much is Hong Kong's role as a bridge in art important as much as Hong Kong art in itself?
Yes, I think somehow Hong Kong has already been a bridge for a long time. I think that's very important. If you see M+ holding the most dominant contemporary art collection of Chinese art from 1978 to now. So that's one of the major things. And historically, and we call one nation, two systems, and Shanghai still benefit from this kind of the new system, the systems here. I think there are many things you can only realize in Hong Kong. We just talk about, well, you go to Shenzhen, you go to other places, but culture-wise, art-wise, the most important, the most complete activity are still dominated in Hong Kong. And historically, Hong Kong always played this kind of role. That's the the backyard, this kind of the only like the window to realize the mainland China. That's one thing about how mainland and China can bring their culture to here. But on the other side, you can see like Hong Kong still play very, very important role as a landing place for the international culture and the other program going to China. There are many, we are not say, okay, we have one blockbuster show in China, in Beijing, in Shanghai, but still those places cannot compete with Hong Kong. Not about the architecture, not about the infrastructure, bilingual language, common law, insurance, conservation, the protection. Hong Kong still offer this kind of massive proper museum culture infrastructure here. And for most of the show, they still want to land it here. And then we are, as a culture institution, we also try to communicate with our colleagues in China. But so far, Hong Kong was the first place for landing such kind of the important show in Hong Kong. So you can see China and also the international here. So that's really make Hong Kong is already a bridge to make this kind of things happen in Hong Kong.
As we covered earlier, you moved here in 2012 from Beijing. Like all Hong Kongers, you've been witness to a great deal of political and social change, particularly in the last 6 years in the city. In your experience, how has a changing Hong Kong affected the diversity of artistic expression? Has it?
I think Hong Kong is, I moved to Hong Kong in 2012, but if you see the whole art world in regarding to the freedom of the speech or freedom of expression, changed a lot after 2008. If you can see after Lehman Brothers financial crisis, and you can see whole deglobalization here. 2000 is also like a social media 2.0. If you see the international wise, this kind of the freedom of the speech is happening everywhere. 2008, in Barcelona, 2 works being censored because of the humiliation of the monarchy there. 2015, Whitney Museum canceled the Diana Schu's painting because of the racism protection. 2017, when Guggenheim making the show for China show, 2 historical works being removed from that because of the protest for the animal rights. And you can see this kind of things happen everywhere. I think that's kind of the new phenomenon global-wise, like how institution in this Web 2.6 time to talking with the institution. So I was always say Hong Kong is not the worst place in the world. It's not the best place in the world. In the place.
You mentioned a couple of key dates. I'm going to throw another 2 at you, 2019, 2020. Have you had any conversations with artists or students that have expressed concern to you that they may be called out for so-called soft resistance or people navigating these lines in Hong Kong?
No.
I want to ask Bernard, you just one follow-up on this as well. The M+'s SIG collection is a collection of contemporary Chinese art, which includes, I think, around 1,500 pieces acquired in 2012, which was a very
donation.
Time.
Majority donation.
Majority donation and 47 acquired. Is that
100?
Sorry?
110 acquired. I forgot. The majority, 1,400.
Only 10% is acquired.
The vast majority donation, partly acquired. This was done in a very different time politically, 2012. Are there any pieces in the SIG collection that M+ now wouldn't display on its rotation? Okay. Or is it fair game, everything in there will go back, will go on the walls at some point?
So reason I want to highlight the fact that Pili was there before me, because I am not responsible for that collection. And so I have to say, I was a founding chairman for Palace, and just when the Palace is about to complete and open, the government called me and said, hey, you got to go to go to M+. I guess there's a bigger problem there.
You're their firefighter.
And I said, can I not go there? I mean, I'm really like my Hong Kong Palace space, because you can almost imagine there's no controversy for 4,000 years, 3,000 years of history, right? But contemporary art, what do you expect, right? And again, it's not a Hong Kong thing, it's a global thing, as P. Lee was saying. Anyway, I didn't have a choice. The government said, you have to go. So I was actually double up as chairman for both Palace and M+ for about 6 months.
Right.
Because I insisted they got to let me at least see the opening of Palace before they shift me over. So I'm the second chairman of M+. I guess the chairman had to deal with the opening, right? Not exactly, because it's open in November 21, and I came in April 22, right?
6 months before.
6 months afterwards, and already there was a huge debate over the collections and everything, da, 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 da. Anyway, so as I said, I am totally not responsible at all with whatever that we got in our collection. But one thing I do know, because I checked with them, I said, is there anything illegal there? And the answer is no. Because how could we as an institution, especially a quasi-government institution, keep anything that is illegal? So it's absolutely, they're all legal, right? So it's not like any of our collection has any potential risk that we will be exposed. No.
Wang Xingwei's New Beijing, for
the question is
part of the collection, that could potentially be
not illegal, right? That's important, right? You got to understand the message very loud and clear. There's nothing illegal. Then the appropriateness, as Pili referred to, is it appropriate to display them in one form or the other? Now, listen to this. So you can imagine this is the same. You're not the only person really asking me this question. I get asked all the time. Almost every visitor in town asks me that. I'm already very well scripted, know how to answer this question. So I listened. I said, so someone asked me this. Someone from the U.S., a very prominent family, potentially a donor to us. So I need to really pay much attention to, because that's what my job is. And he asked me. So I introduced the entire West K and everything. So after the 1 hour introduction, so this person asked me this question. Say, oh, are you telling me that Beijing is not telling you how you run your museum? I said, oh, I get it. I know where you're coming from. I said, not only is not Beijing telling me how I run my museum, nor is Hong Kong government, even though they pay for everything, right? They didn't tell me how I run my museum. But actually, the fact is, as a chair of the museum, I don't get to decide what's going on the wall either. It's not me, not the board. The board have absolutely zero jurisdiction over the curatorial control. It's entirely about my team. So my museum director, she's Australian, Suhanya. My deputy museum director, Doreen, he's South Korean but trained in US. And my entire curatorial team are from 27 nationalities that you used to work very closely with. They're from everywhere. In fact, I was told today there's only one Hong Kong. I think it was Yinif telling me there's only one person from Hong Kong on the curatorial team. Everybody's from everywhere else, right? Now, having said that, so my biggest nightmare today, every day, right, is not Beijing, it's not Hong Kong government. My biggest nightmare every day is social media. My biggest nightmare every day, right? I don't sure something will pop up, and hopefully, if these guys can contain the problem, they will never call me. When I got a phone call from them, I said, "Oh no, what's up now?" If the problem is contained within us, fine. Yeah. But if these controversy start to creating a public outcry in Hong Kong, I guarantee you, I'll get a phone call from Hong Kong government. And worse, if this thing spill over to the mainland and becoming even bigger controversy, oh yeah, you bet I will get a lot of phone calls from everywhere asking me what the hell is going on, right? But this is how I sometimes have to, communicate my team, even though I cannot interfere them. They are totally independent from me, but hopefully I said, listen guys, it would be nice if you can alert me if something happens so that I know, because I'm the one who's taking all the shit,
right?
Not they. The government's not going to call him. It's not going to call my museum director. They're going to call me. But we have that firewall, because I cannot interfere them. Yeah. This is a professional, how it's done professionally, right? But this is an art. How do you do this? How do you making sure? And as Pili very nicely put it, it's not a Hong Kong thing. Yeah. I think all the museums in the world, performing arts, right? They all have to deal with it today, because you just anything offensive. So people ask me about Hong Kong. Actually, our issue here is simple. If you look at the U.S., my God, you're divided on gender, race, you name it, ethnicity. Can you imagine? Is that absolute freedom anymore? So that sort of thing. Now, I'm not saying this is easy. No, we are all learning how to making sure this is a journey that we need to respect each other. You may not agree with each other, but at least can we at least have that space that we can promote diversity that we can. But it's not easy. Not everyone agree. Not everyone agree. I tell you, currently at M+, I won't tell you what it is, but you're going to figure it out. Not the Sikh collection. That is not my concern now. We have another piece at at one of our exhibits, and I got a phone call
Spicy?
it's over. I shouldn't even talk about it, I guess. But it's on the gender issue.
Come find Bernard
Put it this way, it's on
when
gender.
he's not on YouTube.
It's on gender. And wow, so depends on if you're conservative, then you will clearly think that we are corrupting the soul of our future generation on gender issue. But for the rest, they probably say, well, what's wrong with that? So these type of topics are live, is happening, right? So, but at least in Hong Kong, I hope that we can have that space, that we respect each other.
I think, that's, we always say as people running the institution, who are the most dangerous enemy for cultural institution in 21st century? It's the audience. The audience have highly divided in the last 20 years, and for all the political reasons. There are so many, you show one work. When in Hong Kong, we talk about the censorship, we won't talk about the political New Beijing or Weiwei. But if you really run in the institution, there are many things you can confound the different opinions from the audience, gender, ecology, artist reputation, and also the sponsor, where the money comes from. So it's our responsibility to really find, on one hand, we have like all the artists have the creativity with all the spectrum on behind. On the other hand, we are facing more general public. So it's not about the censorship or self-censorship that easy. There are many layers from be polite, diplomatic, censorship, self-censorship, censorship, and violate the law. So for us, we'll never go to violate the law. But when we show a work, we have to see the consequences. We have to prepare the line to take if there are any potential controversy there. But the people who run in the institution, I'm not in the position to talk about M+. I'm the head of art of Kwun. But I want to share a little bit. Sometimes as a people running the institution, for us, it also feel kind of the bored. Like people always use the, did you show Ai Weiwei? How many Ai Weiwei did you show for the opening as the index to say how many freedom speech you are. But the freedom for curatorial freedom means I can do something I want to do. I also have the right to do something I don't want to do. When I make a show, I have my narrative there. If I want to change the New Beijing, that is really serve for the exhibition narrative. So what I want to say, like Hong Kong is not the worst place in the world. It's not the best place in the world. We are like many museum colleagues in the whole world. We are really facing such a dynamic time, and the audience changes so fast. So it's really for us to learn how to talk to public, to young public, to the people from mainland as well to the audience here. We are in Kwun. We have like nearly half. We have almost half audience from Hong Kong, half from all over the world. You show any work there, you have to confound maybe some totally different opinions here.
I'd like to thank you both for engaging in this conversation in good faith. It is a difficult conversation to have, and it's a question that a lot of people have, as you mentioned, Bernard. What I'm taking from this is you're saying it's not about the illegality or legality, it's about the appropriateness, and you as a curator just really in a detailed way explained the kind of spectrum of appropriateness that you are looking at. We appreciate that. I want to ask you a follow-up about what you said about the audience, Pili, and how they are the harshest critics is what you're doing things for. How do you, as head of art at Kwun, and previously at M+, balance the need to have big blockbuster exhibitions and sell tickets and get public interest, but also provide a platform for emerging Hong Kong talent? How do you walk that line? Because sometimes the emerging Hong Kong artists or artists maybe won't sell the tickets, but you also need to be able to justify why we have these things, and that sometimes is measured in footfall, rightly or wrongly. So how do you get that balance?
Yeah, sorry, maybe you should tell the audience about the difference in the Kwun art versus M+, because it's different level.
Yeah, I think that Kwun is the institution with no collection. So all of the work are either from the loan or from the commission.
Right.
And another is very different. Like we are free of the admission, so it's like free for people to come to see the show. As that's the commitment for Jockey Club. So we have many programs to supporting. Not to mention about the food. Our food is pretty good. I think 4 million people, almost 4 million visit the Daiguan, and among those people visiting the Daiguan for the contemporary art, half of the, or sometimes even like 70% are under 40 years old. So that's quite a good number for us. But also important as a cultural institution, we did many things to supporting the young artists. Not only supporting, we commission them work, we show their work in the institution, but we also some other things. You don't remember, we have like around like hundreds of the docents served for the institution every year. They are part-time artists. By working with us, they know how to do the curatorial. They work very close with the artists. So that's one thing. Every of our show, we develop a learning program with fine art department across all the academy in Hong Kong, and we have one corner for high and seek, really working with the young artists to refine the curatorial ideas, and they understand that. And not to mention our part-timer, our part-time technician. Those people are supporting this. They are all the professional artists now and professional artists in future. So when we're talking about how this institution can change the ecology here, you cannot only see the visitor number, the food hall. You cannot only see how many artists are shown in the blue chip artists. I think what we are as an institution doing here, we are really training or give the platform for the young artists for future. That's also another very important role for the institution like us can play with. Yeah.
Talking of that platform, you mentioned in an early answer the importance of the Venice Biennale as a platform for Hong Kong artists. Hong Kong has had a pavilion at the Venice Biennale since 2001. SCMP Arts editor Enid Tsui was on this stage last month, telling us that responsibility for organizing Hong Kong's pavilion at the Biennale will move from M+ to HKMOA moving forward. Bernard, is that true? And if so, is there a reason for that?
Well, first of all, we are being, M+ was, well, most of you are not aware, so the government through the ADC invited M+ to, I guess, they outsourced to us, so I guess we present the show, we select the artists for many years at the Biennale. By the way, it was just really amazing. I mean, I only been to Venice Biennale twice now. First time not in my capacity of M+, I forgot why I was there, but anyway, the second time as a chair and to present the artists on. Anyway, we've been to the Venice Biennale. I mean, it's amazing that whoever, again, this is way back, I think it must be more than a decade ago or more, when somehow someone at the ADC at that level managed to convince the government to fund, because we get the site, because everyone has a pavilion, right? Although we are not inside, but we are in one of the most prominent locations in the Venice Biennale. How prominent? We're right next to the entrance. So everyone passed through Hong Kong Pavilion. So this is, I guess, about a year or 2 years ago. And while everyone else in the world sort of canceled Hong Kong, especially during COVID. So when I saw the pavilion, right, at the entrance to the, what is that called? It's not Arsenale. It's Arsenale, right? The entrance of Arsenale of Venice Biennale. I thought, wow, no man, I mean, it's 100 times better than Hello Hong Kong promotion. I mean, this is putting Hong Kong on the map, putting on the art map. It's right there. It's so important, and it's still there. Now, of course, to your point, now it's no longer, apparently the government decided to give ADC, Art Development Council, MOA, Museum of Art, to present the artists and so on. Fair enough, it's their money, it's the government. I think they want to rotate and give other people a chance. It's a bit of I would hope that M+ will continue to be able to do so, because we already know the cloud and everything. But anyway, I think it's fair enough, because I think they want to promote other artists too from Hong Kong to present at the Venice Biennale.
It's a rotation.
I guess, because we have been doing that for many years now, so I guess they want to rotate. By the way, I know we're running out of time. I really want to tell you guys one message.
I want to go to questions from the audience.
Can I just say this? Because I learned something, because I don't know how many of you here understand the museum world. I don't. I only learned it recently. And I want you guys to understand this, apart from my earlier comments about the commitment, the money, and everything, right? There's another achievement that we should not take this lightly. So after all, M+, I'll come back to Tycoon, but I wear both hats, so I have to be fair. M+, think about it. We are a startup. We're only 3.5 years old. It's only 3.5 years old. Now, could you imagine that we are being just a 3.5 years old institution, but yet today, we are already make it to the top 20 most visited museum in the world. The exact number is 15.
15,
Right? And not only that, now you think about our first, you mentioned Blockbuster, our first show, Kusama.
Yeah.
Right? Now, just to tell you how bad I am, before me joining the M+ board as a chair, blah, 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 I know about a little bit of Kusama, but I didn't think she was a big deal. I didn't even know much about her.
I don't believe you. You're a dot painter, aren't you?
But exactly, because I do my own dot. I don't copy other people's dots. Anyway, of course, I then realized she's a big deal. Anyway, but the point is, when we have her first exhibition, you were involved. How many Kusama collection we have in M+ ourselves?
Less than 10 at that time. Yeah.
No more than 10.
Yeah.
10 pieces. The entire show, we have 200 pieces. In other words, we borrow from many institutions and collectors and everywhere in the world, bring it to Hong Kong. Now you think about it, right? We are a brand new museum at the time with zero track record. Why would anyone want to lend you their priceless collection? I don't know what you're going to do with them. What kind of show you're going to present, right? So don't take that lightly. It wasn't because the infrastructure. Yes, we spent $5 billion US, but that's the hardware, software. And what is software? People. It's not us, it's not me. Who the hell know me? But are the people behind our institution that people trust, because they all came with a track record. They're the one that are able to convince the other museum of the light to work with us. It wasn't for them. I can't imagine why would anybody want to give you any of their things, right, in such a short time. You haven't proved yourself yet. But yet, in such a short time, 3.5 years, or even before that, when we first opened. And then, it's what we do with them. We create that show, uniquely Hong Kong, and such that it became so successful in Hong Kong that now this is our IP, that we export the IP out. Yeah. So the show after Hong Kong, we went to Bilbao, the Guggenheim Museum,
Yep.
using the Hong Kong IP, the whole show. We went to Guggenheim, and then after that, it went to Portugal, to Porto, for another how many more months. Finally, the whole tour is finished, and now the artwork returned back to the owners of the institution. And I thought, wow, this is what Hong Kong is about. We don't own most of the things. The Palace Museum, we don't own anything. Taikwan, we don't own anything. But it's still okay. It's the people behind the institution that we can create something, and that is our IP that hopefully we can export out and put Hong Kong really on the map. So I think with such a 3.5 years institution, we achieved a lot in the art world. That's why it's such important. We might not, I didn't realize it, but when I was in Venice Biennale, I took 2 cards with me, my business card. One is my company business card, which is, when I have my president of my company, right? I give out a card, nobody give a damn about my card. I give out my M+ chairman card, it's like, wow, you're from M+. That when I was seriously thinking, wow. Yes, we spent $5 billion US, but it's worth it. We put Hong Kong on the map.
No doubt that M+ has come a long way in 3.5 years. Thank you for that, Bernard. I think admitting you didn't know much about Kusama is even braver than criticizing Hello Hong Kong, honestly. You're brave on both fronts. We are running out of time, but I do want to give a bit of time for some questions from the floor. If you have a question, please do raise your hand, and someone with a microphone will come and find you. Please do try and keep your questions brief and identify yourself before you ask them. This gentleman was fastest finger first. Microphone's just there behind you.
Is there now, or possibly in the future, any tension between the airport authority and West Kowloon? I recently went to the airport. As we're all aware, if you travel out of Hong Kong, it's a massive construction site. A great deal of the massive construction was described to me as being an art focus. And so I need to know as a taxpayer here and as a supporter both of the Airport Authority as a fantastically impressive airport, but also of M+, as a long-term admirer and fan of the art development of Hong Kong, is there any tension between the plans of the Airport Authority and what M+ is doing and what the West Kowloon is doing now? Or if there is a tension now, is there a potential for future cooperation?
Okay, I'll come back to your questions, but I also need to highlight the fact that for majority part of our conversation is about visual art. But I want to bring in the performing arts too. Paul Tam, our head of our performing arts at Westgate, that's also really happening. Just now when I mentioned that we're exporting our IP, that's visual, same as performing art. So we have amazing performance in Hong Kong. Now we have a tour in Shanghai and Beijing. So we are exporting out our Hong Kong IP, both at the performing art level as well as in the visual art level. I just want to make sure that he gets credit for that too. Coming back to your question. Now, interestingly, I never realized there is this, so again, there are business models that I never realized there is one before. But apparently, because as P.D. actually alluded to early on, because of the tax, free currency, common law, and so on. So apparently, this is fantastic for trading of art, of especially visual art. And before I knew it, and before some of you might know it, but I didn't realize before, wow, we have overtaken London. We are now the second largest contemporary art trading hub in the world. New York, number 1, we are number 2, London. Well, anyway, these top 3 places where art is being traded, visual art.
And further storage is being built at the airport, right?
Well, see, that's the thing, right? So that's part of the answer to the question. So, okay, well, these works are being auctioned and bought here, but especially if they are buyers from China, highly likely they will not take the pieces back to China because of the tax. So they prefer to keep it in Hong Kong. In fact, then I realized it's not just about storage. It's also about exhibitions, because many of them would want to bring their friends to Hong Kong to see their work. So we need to have exhibition spaces allowing them to exhibit their work. So before you know it, then I'll realize that, wow, this is a promising potentials. So airport authorities see that. So is West Kowloon, because we want to also develop that, building up on our ecosystem. Now, I can understand why airport authority want to do the same, because the proximity to the airport, and they have, I guess they have space as well. So, yeah, I think there is some bit of competition right now, which I think is perfectly okay. There's nothing wrong with that. And I think this is part of the bigger question about Hong Kong's future, although today it's about arts and culture. But it is about Hong Kong, right? Just now early on, we were saying, what worked for Hong Kong for the last 20, 30 years, well, may not work anymore. The next 10, 15 years, Hong Kong is going to go through this whole transformation. Certain industry, my industry, probably still okay here, but certain industry will not. So we need to reposition. And so happened, as I said, why I said this is amazing timing for arts and culture, because arts and culture was never part of our main pillar. Today, for the first time, arts and culture is now one of the main pillar, because obviously the government identified, not because they identify, because we identify that this is a very promising future for Hong Kong. The whole ecosystem, both the public sector and the private sector, the galleries and so on and so on. So of course, right now, everybody's saying, because now the government also recognizes this is the potential main pillar for the future. So everyone want to jump onto that and see, well, what else more can we develop through that ecosystem? So airport authorities see that, we see that, everybody see that. So yeah, we're going to go for some healthy, I hope it's healthy competition. The question at the end, though, is who's going to add more value, right? Because it's not actually up to us to decide. At the end of the day, it will be, the collectors and whoever. So they will have to decide which make more sense for them. Do they want to be part of that ecosystem that already built, or they want to be at the airport elsewhere? So, or maybe Hong Kong as a whole. So we don't know, but definitely there's these new potential new developments that, I guess 3-4 years ago it didn't exist. But today, we are also looking forward to how to build on that. Just like Art Basel, Art Basel in less than 2 weeks' time, and I mean, they came a few years already, but now everybody see the potential. So many things are building around the Art Basel, right? You imagine the next next 20 days will be so busy for Hong Kong. So every event, not just art event, financial event, this event, all coming in because it's trying to create ecosystem, and you have a scale. You got scale, and scale matters. And people coming in because people don't travel for one event, two events anymore. They want to come for a number of things, just like London, New York. You don't go to London, New York just for financial meetings, but you also do that, to see the opera, to do this and do that. And that's what Hong Kong needs. If you want to retain visitors, you can't just have one or two events. You need multiple events. But Hong Kong always have a problem with shortage of venues. And hopefully now we may have some more choices.
Healthy competition, not tension. We're running short of time, but I do want to just find time for one more question. The lady just over there. And if it's quick, we'll do one more after that.
Yeah, why don't you ask both to answer?
Sure. Why don't you ask questions at the same time? The gentleman over there and the lady over there. Let's see if we can ask them all, and then it'll be up to you to try and weave in answers to all three.
Thank you so much for your sharing. And I'm thinking about the future, and both from both Tai Kwun and M+M or West Kowloon's perspective. The Smithsonian Institution has an endowment that covers 6% of their operating costs on an annual basis. And I'm curious to hear your thinking about is it feasible for your institutions to build an endowment? What are the hurdles, or like what success have you found in terms of convincing potential high net worth individuals to supporting the building of the endowment?
Okay, why don't we take a few more questions?
A lady over there. Sorry, with just over there.
You answer the endowment.
And I think that's all we're going to have time for. We'll do those two questions. Okay. We're over time.
Well, more and more collectors are treating the art pieces as a kind of investment and assets nowadays. And so when we talk about this art plus finance, how do you think this kind of art finance market in Hong Kong, what advantages do we already have here, and what's the missing part, and how could we boost the market?
Okay.
Can I ask another question about the Jockey Club?
Sorry, no, let's stick on that.
Okay.
Dr. Peely, can you answer the first one, and Bernard, would you?
No, we decided I took the first one, you take the second one.
Yeah. Okay, you want to do that way around? Okay.
So I'll take the endowment.
Yeah.
It's an easy one. Now, since I talked so much about West Kowloon, I'm now going back to Tai Kwun, otherwise it would be unfair for Tai Kwun. Now, when you talk about the endowment model, who's paying for Tai Kwun? It's Jockey Club. That's the endowment already, right? It wasn't for Jockey Club. No way. And no institution in Hong Kong can take up Tai Kwun. Because Tai Kwun is not just about art, it's also about heritage. 17 historical buildings, with a few of them over 100 years old. It's a huge cost. They're not making money, and it's free. Your exhibit is mostly free. So it's a gift from the Jockey Club. I have to stay as a steward of the club. It's a gift to the community. But I'm sure they will be very happy. There will be another institution to come forward and say, I'll take it up. I'm sure Jockey Club is more than happy to offload to somebody else. But unfortunately, in Hong Kong, it's not easy to find such organization, right, that have the commitment and the resources to support like Tai Kwun. I don't want to scare you, but I'm talking about their running deficit is a lot, put it this way, right? It's very costly. But again, it's a culture. We need to generate and build that culture, because if you talk to the donors today, many of the donors still talking about, because they want to see a more tangible kind of outcome, and perhaps they say, well, what's the value in this? But art and culture and music, to me, is investment. Yep. Right? You cannot. This is the problem when my chief executive of Hong Kong asked me too. What is your KPI? Because I can't blame him. When the government's running a deficit, so I'm sure he wants to make us accountable. So, and how do you measure that? How do you measure? Is it visitors? Visitor number is not bad, right? Our visitor numbers at Tai Kwun is very good. Our visitor to West K is very good. But in terms of the dollar and cents, especially these days, you cannot even say just a ticket, not the museum tickets anymore. Are they generating like F&B revenue, or even hotels? But now a lot of visitors is day trip. You don't even actually have to go to your to use your F&B or stay in hotel. So how do you measure that? So it's going to take us some while to educate the community, how to measure the value of our investment in the arts and culture space, and to attract people to agree